Um, I wouldn't mind doing that. I would definitely do that. I think this is a subject that we've got to deal with, because ultimately, if we don't deal with it, those of us who have been through it, first of all, there usually is not a place, a safe place for us to talk about it. So, I think we have to talk about it, and ultimately, not talking about it, I think, constricts us and restricts us, and that's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to recover from it because you typically don't have a place to talk about it. The other part of it is I'm always one of these people. I'm not. I hate to say this about certain things, but I think this is one of those situations where unless you are a product of it, you were directly in it and around it. It's very difficult to understand certain parts and certain emotions that come along with divorce. Like I can tell people that it hurts, but until you're in it, there's a certain, until you feel it, like we all know subconsciously that like getting shot hurts, right? I think if you don't have to get shot to be like, oh, that probably hurts. But I think there's a totally different, like you understand it completely different once you've been shot, and it's like, wait a second, oh God, wait, this is not cool at all. So I think that's kind of it's on those same lines. Like you have to experience it before you really get it. So we do need to talk about this. And by the way, just so you guys know, what's actually pretty funny is I actually told my ex-wife I'm doing this, and she kind of looked at me like, "Oh Jesus, what is he doing?" And so after I kind of told her, some of the stuff we are talking about, she was like, "Oh, okay." But so like y'all ain't got to worry about like, oh my God, she's going. No, she knows exactly what I'm doing, and she thinks I'm crazy, but that's all right. She's always thought I was a little crazy. Um, so, okay, so we talked about on the first one before Facebook Live started acting crazy. We talked about personal accountability, personal responsibility, and growth. Introspective looks at yourself and what things you need to do and how you can grow and develop. The second thing that you need to do, that you can do to help recover from divorce, is you've got to really identify, again, what it is that you can do with all of this information that you've gotten. So, you guys have ever heard that you don't really learn something until, or know that how much you learned until you start to teach it? Well, it's similar in that as you go through this process, there has to be a place where you can tell others and talk to others about what you've gone through, and to do it in a way that is respectful of the process, respectful of everybody that is been associated with the process, and gives and that allows you the space to be genuine. Yes, I'm on Facebook. That gives you the opportunity to be genuine and honest about what it is that you have experienced is needed, because just like any type of trauma, or any type of thing that you go through, to not talk about it, to not have a space to use what you've learned, really mentally and spiritually and emotionally, will begin to fatigue you. Because now what you have in essence done is you have taken, have you ever seen a balloon that, how when you blow up a balloon and it gets to the point where it gets so big that it pops? It's the same thing, that you are ingesting so much information and so much knowledge, hopefully, that what it's doing is it's really helping you to create a space where you can train and teach others. So you've got to be able to use the divorce that you've gone through to be able to help others. And you've got to do it in a way that is genuine and unique to the way that you are, to your personality, again, and respecting everyone who's around you. So that's another thing you could do. Here's number three. Another thing that you can do to help recover from divorce is realize that that a part of your purpose is has been birthed or rebirthed through this process. Because one of the for me, I struggled. I really, 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 truly struggled with how my purpose changed, or if my purpose changed because of what I had gone through. Again, I've been in ministry for 19. I've been preaching for almost 20 years. I've been preaching since 1998. Preached my first sermon at a Kojic church in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in 1998. And I thought, and I knew then in 1998 what God had called me to do. I knew My pastor before then, in high school, big shout out to Apostle H. Daniel Wilson. Before I went to college, I told him that I knew that I was called to preach, and he asked me a couple of questions, and the first question he asked me, he said, Winfred, he said, first two questions he said is, who are you called to preach to, and what are you called to say? And I knew then that I was, well, no, I take that. I didn't know who. I knew what it was to say, but I didn't know who it was to say to. I knew always, just as I know now, that my life is designed to teach people how to live in the freedom and in the liberty that Jesus Christ came to give us. I also understand that a large portion of that is to talk about relationships, to talk about finance, and to talk about health. I know that those are three very strong areas that I lean to because personally, those are the gifts that I have. Okay, so in the process of divorce, I thought and I wondered and struggled with how will God ever use me now that I have gone through this process. I mean, seriously, who wants to talk to a pastor who, in my mind, who has gone through divorce and talk to them about marriage? At least I know I didn't. When I got married, I didn't want to go talk to somebody who I knew had been divorced. I wanted to talk to and was married by a pastor who him and his wife had been married for 30 plus years, and I thought, and they had it all figured out, and they had a really cool, cute looking marriage that I thought that I wanted to emulate. So I struggled with that. I even struggled with the fact that I had some of those really close friends of mine who I told you guys about telling me that God would not only not use me anymore, but that the effectiveness of my ministry had been completely destroyed because I had gone through divorce. Now these are my friends that are telling me this, and so I was already fighting the guilt and condemnation and struggle and all that kind of stuff, and then for my friends to tell me this was even more harmful in the process. With all of that being said, what I had to realize was that not that God had gotten rid of my purpose or that my destiny had been changed, but that ultimately I had a moment. That I had made some mistakes, that I had done some things wrong, and that I needed to have. This is actually, I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I told you guys before that the scripture that he told me. He said that he took me to the scripture in the Bible that says that Satan wishes to Peter. He says Satan wishes to sift you as wheat, but I prayed for you that after you have fallen, that you would recover your brother. And in that moment, and in that study and all that kind of stuff that I was having about that passage, I came up on a very interesting question that I had to answer. And that question was, what was the difference between Peter and Judas? Both of them, Peter and Judas, technically could have been guilty of the same charge. Both of them, for the most part, had denied Jesus or betrayed Jesus, and they walked with him that whole nine. But why is it that Judas chose one path, meaning that he killed himself, whereas Peter was the person who was used at the day of Pentecost to stand up and announce the next dimension of ministry? And what he showed me was very simple. He said that Peter repented and allowed his mistakes to be the basis of how he dealt with people, and Judas ran away from it and decided that because he had made a mistake that he was not going to be a man and own up to it. And he told me, he said, if you will own up to what you did, if you will stand and be a man who is honorable even after you have fallen, then I will show you that my grace is sufficient for you. And I'll use you the same way that I had always planned on using you before. But I needed you to go through this, or I needed you to understand that I can carry you even through this. And at that moment, I was like, cool, I can do this. And I repented again. And so then that goes back to the period of self-reflection, through the period of having to talk about it, through the period of trying to understand again what happened so that when the scenario presents itself again, we don't have this same issue ever again. Okay? That's how you recover. And after you recover, and as you recover, as my friend on Periscope said, when you recover, recovering does not mean that you never feel it, that it never bothers you, that it never something that you don't struggle with. That's not what recovery means. What recovery means is that what you went through does not have you, that you are not bound by the mistake that you have, that you're not bound by the words of people, that you don't allow the fact that your feelings are hurt or that you don't feel good about it to consume you. But you recognize that it is a moment, that it was a mistake, that it was an error, that it was a good thing, that it was a bad thing, whatever. You realize that it is what it is, and ultimately, before the foundation of the earth, I was sent here to do something, and I'm going to live my life every day to do that one thing. And once you're able to do that, then you, even on the days that it is difficult, even on the days where you still might not feel good about this, what you've gone through, even on the through the seasons where it feels like you are not the type of person who is deserving of love, you will remember that not only were you a deserving of love, but that the Creator, the Father, it sounds like you're about to cry. No, I'm not about to cry. That the Creator, but I would cry. I'm not averse to crying, man, but I'm not gonna cry. That the Father set up the entire system for you to have and to be able to do the thing that He designed you to do. That's recovery. Again, you will never hear. I have friends who have recovered from alcohol addictions, porn addictions, all kinds of addictions, and you will never hear them say that they are. They will always say, "I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a recovering addict of this. I'm a recovering that." And it doesn't mean, again, what it means is that they recognize that this is something that has happened, and they will forever realize that it's something that they're going to fight. So you have to use it. You can't allow it again to keep you from saying that I know I can't be loved again, or because I made a mistake, I'm not going to ever get married. You should desire that. You should want it. You should take your time. But understanding that ultimately, again, recovery is possible for you. Now, let's talk about how what you do with those friends and those people who are around you. Because again, as I told you before, everybody is affected by it, and to properly go through it, you have to. If you're fortunate like me, you have good family and friends who will come and wrap their arms around you and walk with you through this process. But I think it's Proverbs that says that friends are born from times of adversity. I'm paraphrasing, through times of adversity. But what you will find is that in moments like this, that there will be people who will come forward and who will be there with you to walk through this process with you. They might not be, as close as those people who were there before, but there's a reason those people aren't there anymore. But it is because, again, a lot of this you have to go through by yourself. But your family and your friends, and what you should really do is you should really spend time engaging those places and those people, I have to sneeze, who really do love you and will love you even, excuse me, even though you've gone through this. So you have family. Hey, Auntie, how you doing? So you do have family and friends who will help you and be there for you. I know for myself, again, my family, I can speak personally, my family was huge during this process. And I mean like huge for me during this process. For me, my family became, for the first time probably in my life, and I'm talking about cousins, aunties, extended family. What's going on, Randy? How you doing? That group of people. I didn't grow up being around them as much as I, in retrospect, maybe would have liked to. But during that season, when that transition happened, those people became like my best support system ever. And from that, even to this moment now, I hang out with my cousins. Like we never did that. I never really did that. A lot of it's because they're younger. I never did that, but me and my first youngest cousin, we hung out. And sorry, I probably got him into trouble that I didn't need to. But my younger cousins, now we hang out. We talk more, even with me and my sister, we talk more and all that kind of stuff. And so that has been something for me that has helped build me up, because now I am able to learn more about them than I've ever learned before. And if you're already close to your family, that's cool. Then you've got other friends who you can who you can engage or re-engage. And remember those friends I was telling you about who made all of the comments and things like that. Those friends, that relationship has even been restored because again, I was able, because we were able to come back and have the discussion about what really happened, and I saw it from their perspective, they saw it from my perspective, and we both were able to repent to one another for the mistakes that we had made. And I learned from that. I learned how hard it is for me to do certain things that they didn't realize. I learned, really what they meant when they said certain things. And so it was just a great learning experience to grow and to develop and recover and restore those relationships. I can promise you again, even if, and as you recover, here's something that's interesting. As you recover, your relationships recover. As you are restored and you allow restoration and healing and love and allow your heart to be opened and all that kind of cheesy stuff. As you allow all of that process to happen, then you will find that begins to happen to those people who are around you. Because when you hurt, they hurt. When you love, they love. When you feel pain, they feel pain with you. And it is almost as if they have gone through it, the same process that you have. And that's the beauty of it, is that just as you can allow things to come back into your heart and into your life, so can they. So recovery is awesome. I'm going to tell you, it is totally awesome. And you'll find yourself, and one way you know you are recovering is when you find your responses to things changing. When you know that a way that you would normally respond a certain way to something, and you're like, I'm not going to respond like that anymore because I've grown beyond that. Not to say that in a condescending way, but to say that in a truthful way. Like, I know now that is not the way that I need to handle that. And so now that I've learned from that, I'm going to grow from that, and I'm going to respond in a way that is healthy, and not in a way that is harmful to those people who are around me. And you'll love better. I'll tell you this: when you love better when you go through this, through recovery, you love better because now all of a sudden you begin to see other people for the person that they are. Not that you don't have expectations of them, but that you just understand that people are people, and when they make mistakes, they need to be loved through their mistakes instead of condemned for them. So I'll leave you with this. My dad said something to me, and I hope some of you guys have heard me say this. My dad said something to me the day that I told him that I was getting divorced. And that, by the way, was probably the hardest conversation I had to have, was with him. And so I told him, and see, now I feel like I'm going to cry. Thanks, Joe. But the day I told him, I said, he called, we were on the phone, and he said, I'm really sorry to hear this. He tried to talk me out of it. He said, you know what, this is not something you really want to do. He said that, he said, you don't, he said, your issue is not that you want divorce. Your issue is that you want things to stop hurting. He said, and you think this is the only thing that you have. He said, I'm telling you, I don't think you should do it. He said, but you're my son. He said, I love you. He said, I want you to understand two things. He said, you are going to experience pain like you have never experienced in your life. He said, but you will also you will also experience the mercy and the grace of God on a level that you have never experienced before. He said, and God will begin to show you some things, and you will experience some things that you never thought were possible. He said, I can promise you, as long as you continue to trust Him, you'll be fine. And I'm adding to that as long as you continue to trust Him and be obedient to Him and be totally committed to getting better, that restoration, no matter what, that recovery, no matter what you have to go through, is going to be possible. Now, okay, answer question. So here's my question. The question I was asked, thank you, and I'm going to answer this question. It was, how do you recover financially from a divorce? So financially recovering from a divorce can be tough. The first thing you have to do is that you have to take full account of where you are. Meaning, Divorces can be expensive. So if you've got bills, lawyer bills and things like that, then you need to take a full account of where you are, and financially. If you're in debt, you need to know all of the debt you have. If you a full picture. If there are debts that you all are splitting, that you need to know. You need to know all of that. If you're taking on all of the marital debt, you need to know whatever the financial picture is. You need to know. And after you have all of the information of what you owe or what you don't have or what you do have, then at that point, then what you need to do is you need to aggressively begin a process of eliminating the debt that you have. In doing that, if you are, I tell people, go ahead, direction and take time for broken hearts. Man, y'all agree with that, Pat. If you are, I tell, especially men or women, whoever, if you're getting alimony or child support, I recommend not counting on that money. Don't build your lifestyle around the money that you're supposed to get. So if you make, I'm going to give you a scenario. If you're making $50,000 a year, or let me give you a better number. If you make $1,500 a month and take home, and you're supposed to get an additional $500 a month from your ex-husband or ex-wife, do not build your budget around $2,000 a month. Build your budget around the $1,500 that you make, and then take any additional amount that you get. That is, you get child support or you get alimony, or a mixture of both. Then you can replace that money. So in your budget, the money that you were supposed to, the $500 that you were supposed to have allocated for, food for your children, daycare, whatever expenses for your children, you would put that with that for that, and then the 500 that you of your money that you don't have to spend, you apply that to paying off any types of debt that you would have. Okay, so base your budget, base where you live, base all of everything, what you drive, the money that you're going to have. Base that on the money that you make. Do not base that on the money that, including the spousal support that you are, or child support that you're going to get. The reason you don't want to do that is because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if that person's going to get in their feelings and decide that they're going to quit the job. And things do happen, so you never know that. But you ultimately want to be in a position where that is not money that you need. So don't plan your budget around it. Second thing you want to do is you want to remember that with divorce, often your just like in death, when somebody dies, typically your expenses, unless you move and make some drastic changes, will all stay the same. It's just now less of a salary that's going to pay you. So you might have to downgrade, your home or where you're living, or downgrade your car in order to be able to afford those types of things, because they're not going to stop. Unfortunately, whoever your car note or your mortgage is through, they really don't care that you're divorced. They don't care. They just want their money because you agreed to pay it. So you need to be proactive about refinancing debt if you have it, again, or possibly downgrading. Selling a car that you have, and getting something that is less expensive, get better gas mileage, things like that. And then after a period of time, once you're able and you're steady again, then that's when you begin to look at additional streams of income. So can you invest more money into things that will help you make more money? Can you start a business that will help you bring in additional revenue? And things like that. Do you have a gift or a skill that you can leverage that will help bring in more money? For example, like writing a book. Can you write a book and then, or do you teach? Or do you, what is it that you do that's really well? Do you sing? I know, we've got some musicians on here. Can you play? Can you do things like that that can help you bring in additional revenue that will help you? And that'll also, to be honest, those types of activities also help and aid your recovery, because you're doing things that you enjoy, and you're having fun. And when you're having fun, then it helps to keep depression and mental attacks away from you. You'll have to still deal with them, but they help keep them away from you, because you have a place that that is still safe and that's still fun for you to go and make more money. So That's really the basics of how you do that. Again, you plan around what you make, not around what you make plus what you're supposed to be getting in spousal support or child support. Okay. And once you do that, then you can, if you listen to the budgeting video last week, you saw, then you can talk about, we can start talking about budgeting and how we can properly allocate your money to get you out of debt in whatever period of time you're looking for. I hope I answered that question. Any other question? Patrick did make a good point. He says that you want to take a few years to hear from God for direction and time for the broken heart to mend. That is true. You do want to do that. Yeah, I don't recommend jumping from one relation to the next. I don't recommend that at all. Yeah, I don't recommend it. It doesn't typically work well because you're still a compromised, well, I'll say a compromised situation emotionally. And again, there's a process that you just need to go through. And sleeping with somebody else does not make that easier. So, so I hope. Any other questions? We good? Was this helpful? I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it was helpful for you. Seriously, I'll say this. Like I said, I'm the same person who I was before divorce, but I'm a different man. Um, and I like to I'll be honest, I can't attribute it all to divorce, but I can attribute it to divorce and fatherhood. That those two things, the combination of those two things, has transformed who I was and the way I think about a lot of things, and I'm very careful about things that I was probably not as careful about, and I'm very protective is the word I want to look for, use about certain things that before I probably was not as protective about and should have been. So it grows you for the better if you allow it to. So, all right, I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat now. But I hope you guys have been helped. Again, if you are